Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Network Effect. I'm your host, Amy Henderson, VP of Client Relations at Channelnomics. Today, we're diving into one of the most important transformations happening across the partner ecosystem, the shift toward AI-driven partner automation. If you've been feeling the pressure of managing co-selling, partner engagement, deal visibility, or the never-ending complexity of partner operations, you're not alone. The ecosystem is scaling faster than the tooling built to support it. And that mismatch is creating massive friction for vendors and partners alike. That's why I'm especially excited about today's guest. In just a moment, we'll be joined by Brian Martin, CEO of Channelscaler, a company that's rethinking PRM from the ground up. Channelscaler is pioneering a new model, lighter, smarter, more automated, and built for how revenue actually flows today. Brian has spent his career leading and scaling SaaS organizations, and he's bringing that experience to solving some of the biggest challenges in partner management, using automation, AI, and workflow intelligence to eliminate the manual lift that slows down partner revenue. Today, we're going to unpack where the market is headed, what vendors are still getting wrong about partner operations, and how companies can modernize their approach to ecosystem revenue in 2026 and beyond. So stick around. This is a conversation you're going to want to hear. Brian, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to dig in here with you.
Now, remind us, where are you joining us from today?
So today, this week, I'm in London for an event on the future of partnering in 2026. But my home base is Boston, so I'm balancing between two great cities right now.
So, Brian, how are things in your world right now, both personally and at Channelscaler?
Honestly, things are really strong on both sides. I joined Channelscaler back in September, so it's been about 6 months. I'm having a blast. Great people, great team, and we're building at a really interesting time in the evolution of the channel. So I'm excited for things to come.
Let's start with the macro view. The partner landscape, as you know, is evolving rapidly. AI, automation, co-selling, marketplaces, ecosystem plays. So, from your vantage point, Brian, what do you see as the biggest shifts happening right now?
So, marketplaces and co-selling are top of mind for everyone that we talk to. Anyone who's in a partner-centric enterprise, right? They're thinking about those because these are now like truly core revenue motions for them. But, I wouldn't be a CEO if I didn't mention AI, right? AI is changing everything about what we do at work and play and learn and communicate, right? It's a truly a massive accelerator, but I think like the real shift we're seeing is the ecosystem is just becoming more complex. And AI is this control layer, right? That can help the vendors deliver the right offer to the right partner at the right time, right? It's reducing the complexity of the ecosystem, but when it's done right. And I think, when you look across partners and you look across vendors and partner leaders, like I think everyone's still trying to figure out what AI means and how it can be used, but it's going to become more clear, I think, over the next 12 to 24 months for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we talk with so many folks that, they're trying to adopt AI, but they're really trying to more importantly figure out the right business outcome that they want to get out of it. And right now, I think that there might be still a little bit of a disconnect there, but I agree with you. I think that in the next few years, that's going to be more solidified and clearer. So, but yeah, great insights there. So when we talk about a little bit more shifting into Channel Scalar's vision, right, in
Mhm.
terms of positioning itself as a different kind of PRM, right? Lighter, more intelligent, more automated. What gaps in the market do you see that pushed Channel Scalar to build a new model for partner management?
That's a great question. We're focused on three unlocks: automation, engagement, and insight. But they're
Mhm.
all in the service of one thing, which is the ease of doing business. I talk to customers, I talk to partners all the time, prospects, and they're all asking and focusing on ease of doing business. But when you look at the traditional PRMs, they're heavy, they're manual, they're pretty fragmented. And so, we're automating those repetitive tasks, right? Everyone, deal registration and rebates, approvals, MDFs, right? And of course, we're layering AI to guide the vendors and the partners in that process. But then when you think about engagement, it's really about relevance, right? So, if you're a partner, you shouldn't log in to a portal and have to kind of dig around to find what matters to you, right? They should see what matters to them, the programs that are tailored to them, their geo, their tier, their particular performance. And then, of course, and insights are critical, right? If you can't see what's working real time, you can't optimize. You can't optimize what those incentives are. You can't optimize how you segment your partner base. You can't optimize the spend. So ultimately, it really just boils down to like Channelscaler, providing this platform that's hyper focused on ease of doing business for both the vendor and the partner. A very simple, consistent experience for both sides, and that's just a massive shift in the PRM market.
Yeah. And you've been very vocal about AI enabled partner ecosystems, you automating the partner life cycle from recruitment to activation to sourcing deals. And I think that you touched on it pretty well in what you just said. Where do you see AI making the most meaningful impact today throughout all of that?
So we see AI impacting all areas of the partner ecosystem, right?
Mhm.
So from recruiting the right partners to agentic AI, guiding partners through an onboarding program, serving up the right content to the right segments at the right time, driving the right reporting and metrics and visibility, right? So like think about recruitment. Like this is hard for any partner leader and any vendor leader, right? They're thinking about like who do I recruit and like who's a good fit for me, and like finding the right next partner is a very manual process traditionally, but now with AI this process gets simpler, it gets faster, it accelerates. But then, even then, once you have the right partner on board it or signed up, now it's about how do you activate them. And that's really about time to ROI. And this gets, again, a lot easier with AI and what it can do to serve up the right content to folks. And, again, agentic AI that can take them step through the process. And then again, we think about insights, right? AI can highlight, which incentives are driving revenue, right? Where is the spend being wasted, which is super important for folks to figure out. So, it's really about making the ecosystem work smarter, not harder.
Right, right. We always at Channelnomics say, partnering is easy, but partnerships is hard. And that
Hmm.
comes into play when you talk about what partners should you work with? How should you recruit them? Then how do you equip them? Then how do you give them the continuous enablement in terms of insights that they need? And how do you, continuously keep them engaged to keep coming to you? So if you can stream like that and provide that increased visibility through AI. I think that is huge, and I love that the way that you guys are thinking about that. And speaking of partnering with more of the rise of automated co-selling, right? With co-selling becoming a primary revenue motion, deal visibility, cross team coordination. Those are huge gaps for many vendors. So, how is Channel Scaler supporting companies that want more automated, intelligence driven co-selling motions?
It's you said something earlier, right, about how hard it really is in theory. Same thing with co-selling, right? So co-selling fails when the visibility across all the different teams is fragmented, right? So we believe it starts with a shared system of record, right? It's everyone in one platform seeing the same data, seeing the same data on status, sharing that accountability because this is where channel scale plays, right? We support joint business planning, right? Sharing dashboards, define rules of engagement, right? So teams can focus on selling together, right? And everyone's accountable daily for those dashboards, for those metrics, not just monthly or, not just waiting for the QBR, in which case by the time they have that QBR, like the data is dated, right? It's tough to take action on something. Maybe all the different initiatives that were in play are actually already done. So you can't even pivot from those. So, we're building, our own ecosystem of partners actually, right? So, think about, drinking our own champagne, as they say, right? So we're augmenting the Channelscaler platform, working with some strategic ecosystem partners. So we can extend some of those capabilities to our own customers around, account mapping, marketing automation, enablement, payments. So, ultimately, co-selling works when it's structured, when it's transparent with shared goals and accountability. But, otherwise it's just a bunch of meetings. That's not going to move the needle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if an account manager can't see what a partner is doing within a sales deal, or more importantly, if you can't point that visibility to a CFO to justify, the relationship with the partner and what they're doing, and ultimately awarding the partner for those efforts, and if the partner can't see with what they're getting out of that deal, I mean, it's all about visibility, and I'm so glad that you guys are thinking about that. Well, when you think about from the channel scaler perspective in terms of guiding partners today, you've led and scaled SaaS businesses through different stages of growth, right? What
Mhm.
lessons from those experience shape how you're building channel scaler and guiding partners today?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have a good career. I've had some great mentors along the way. I've learned from some successes. I've learned from a lot of failures too. And I think, if I were to highlight a few more hard-earned lessons, first, I always tell my team that we can't scale random. And what I mean by that is, like, scale requires structure, process, data, right? We need playbooks. If we're doing a bunch of one-off things, it's tough to figure out what's working. Therefore, it's really hard to scale that. Second thing is, people will say, like, you can't manage what you don't measure, right? And I am a big data guy. I love math, right? So I choose data over gut 9 times out of 10, right? I'm a very objective person, and we're bringing that level of objectivity, data driven nature to Channel Scaler. Third, hard earned lesson was around, how collaboration truly compounds growth, right? Collaboration is what gives you that 1 + 1 = 3, if not 4, math, which I know isn't actual math. But that's also why, for example, my calendar is public. I make it public internally so everyone can see what I'm doing, because I want there to be that level of collaboration across the entire company. And I think the last, hard-earned lesson for me is around, I talk about radical transparency, like building ownership. Like, we have all this data, we're measuring it. I want to make sure we're communicating that across the company. So we're very dashboard driven. We share this with the company during company meetings. Because, like, if you expect your team to act like owners, well, then we have to show them the score, so to speak, so we can take action.
Yeah. And it's great that you mentioned the math earlier. Show me the data, show me the numbers. We have so many channel leaders that come to us and say, "How can we get more of a seat at the boardroom?" Because not all channel leaders have
Mhm.
that seat at the boardroom, and so they need to earn the voice and the credibility from their CROs or their CEOs. And the best way to do that is show them the data trail, the number
Yep.
trail to how partner activity, how MDF leads to partner activity, leads to pipeline generation, leads to revenue, leads to bookings, right? And
Yep.
and
Yep.
show how that all, and that's how you build credibility, is through the data. It's not optimism, it's data. So um
100%.
great advice for any channel leader looking to get more of a set at the table. Well, speaking of revenue, right? I there's this mind shift happening, right? And it's better partner experience equals better partner performance. So, how do you think about partner engagement design? From onboarding to enablement, to reoccurring touches. How do you see that equating to those hard earned, booked revenue dollars?
Yeah. I mean, for us at Channel Scale, ease of doing business is paramount, right? It's
Yeah.
the focus of everything that we do for both partners, for vendors, and how what we build, and how we engage. So, when you think about, your average partner, like, they get up in the morning, and they're thinking about 8 to 10 different vendors that they're working with. And look, if that program for one of the vendors is complex, it's slow, it's manual, it's fragmented, it's confusing, they're gonna drop down the priority list, right? And so, we design at Channelscaler, and the advice we give all of our customers is that it's about designing for simplicity, right? Clear programs, intuitive, simple process, simple programs, quick target communication, fast payouts, right? So, and with that strong cadence of communication, the partner experience improves. They're going to be more productive. They're going to work with you more. They're going to be happier. They're going to be more loyal. And really, if you think about it, the better the experience drives engagement. Engagement drives revenue. It's that simple. It's exactly what you just said.
Yeah. Partners want to know if they can make money with you, how they're going to make it, and who to call when they need help, right? That all
Mhm.
goes about to increase transparency, ease of doing business, right? Reduce that friction and, provide better routes to market, right? At the end of the day, that's what partners crave. That's what they're looking for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about pitfalls. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see vendors still make today when running partner programs and implementing PRMs?
I see a few different mistakes, right? So one, oftentimes the programs aren't simple, right? The programs, need a PhD to understand. And like, again, simplicity, as we talked about before, is what drives that level of engagement. And I've heard from so many partners who say, I will work with the vendor that's the easiest to do business with, where the programs are the most simple, even at a lower margin, right? So two, I think a lot of the companies out there have to think a little bit differently about partner segmentation. So all partners are important, but they're not all equal. And what I mean by that is like they're all a little bit different. You can have a partner in Germany, and you can have a partner in Brazil, or a partner in the United States, and like they're going to want to see different programs, different content, different languages, right? You have partners in different tiers, right? So like you got to think a little bit differently about those partners and how you serve up to them what they need. And then, we talked a little bit about this already, but like, that saying around, you can only manage what you measure, right? Like it's really important for all programs that the vendor out there is considering reporting and how to measure ROI. Like we've seen a lot of companies launch programs and then discover later they actually don't have a way to measure those results. And so, you mentioned earlier, having to go to your CFO, like ever since, the end of ZERP, right? Money's not free anymore. And so CFOs are playing a heavy, heavy hand in everything that goes. And so if you don't have that data that you can now present to them at the end of the year when you're looking for more budget to spend on incentives and MDFs or whatever it may be, well, they're not going to actually give you the money for that, right? Because again, they are very data driven. They're very objective and like, show me the money. Where's the return? So when launching programs, I always say it's really important to think about what's the ROI, but how are you going to measure that? Because in the end, the complexity of programs kills adoption. We know what happens if they're not adopting, right? They're not engaging. That leads to less revenue. But then also, like the lack of data kills the opportunity to optimize, right? And so in the end, you have partners that just slowly stop using your systems and they move away and they're using another vendor, right? And that's not good for anybody.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that because we cover a lot of finance forums for our clients that include uh this C-level executives from, these Fortune 500, Fortune 100 high-tech SaaS vendors, right? And these VPs of finance and CFOs say that they are responsible for every single dollar and they need to be able to see
Hmm.
on a P&L. It's great that you do all of these, partner, events and that you co-host all of these things, but you have to show me on the bottom line how we are getting ROI. Otherwise, we can't fund that, for the following
Yep.
year. So it's all about showing the data. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. Let's think about trends in terms of ecosystem intelligence and automation. So, Brian, as you think forward into 2026 and beyond, where's the ecosystem headed? What trends should partner leaders be building towards right now?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a few out there, probably like three or four, right? So, we've talked a little bit about it, but like ecosystems in general, multi-partner co-selling, right? Like that's a huge trend, right? Channel chiefs are working now with different partner types, right? And they're sort of pulling them all together to sell together, and they're trying to solve for these customer outcomes. So I think, this is definitely a journey for many. It's not going to happen overnight, but that is a trend that everybody is starting to embrace. Marketplaces, right? That's, look, if you're not using this, you're going to be left behind. That's for sure. We talked about AI, but again, it's just worth mentioning again, right? Like, and it's not just, you mentioned beginning of our conversation here, it's not AI for AI's sake, right? Like leaders want automation. That's going to save them time, right? It's going to reduce their costs. It's going to improve their margin. It's going to provide them better insights so they can drive, profitable, predictable revenue. And then I think that the last piece here is around, talking to a lot of different folks in the ecosystem. They're focused on the cost to serve their partners, right? So they're under pressure, right? I mentioned the CFO is playing a heavy hand, right? They're under pressure to reduce the cost of managing all the partners, especially some of the smaller ones, like the longer tail. And so this again is a place where AI can come in, right? Because it can help drive that scale without increasing headcount, and right. So when you think about, for me, the next era of the channel, it's intelligent, it's automated, and it's definitely ecosystem orchestrated.
Yeah. Yeah. And, trying to find areas where you can maximize your existing headcount without adding new, and then creating, again, more productivity for, the headcount that you have, while automating a lot of, the manual work that AI can take over, I think is something that a lot of organizations are thinking about, right? They don't
Hmm.
necessarily want to replace their headcount with AI. They want to find ways that their existing headcount could be more productive, with also, maintaining their existing bottom line without having to add new. So,
Yeah,
well, Brian, this has been a great conversation, and I am so glad we're having it. And I think that this is going to be beneficial for a lot of folks to hear in terms of best practicing on how they are going to, most utilize partner onboarding and enablement, and ongoing, again, equipping of their partners to make sure that they are performing in the way that they need to, by using the automation that is available with technologies like Channelscaler. So really appreciate your insights here.
of
Before
course.
we close, I like to ask a little fun question at the end. We all work really hard in what we do, right? And we all need sort of that coffee break time, in our day, or as we close our day, or maybe in the morning. So share with the audience, what is something that you're listening to, watching right now, maybe reading, that's giving you that coffee break, or that serotonin boost that you may need.
Sure. So I love reading books about military history, right? So
Mm,
special operations forces, Rangers, SEAL teams, Marine Force Recon, of course, Special Forces, Green Berets. The leadership, the grit, the clarity of under pressure that they demonstrate to me is really inspiring, and it's something that I think draws real parallels to scaling a company. But like on a probably lighter note, lighter decompression, I've recently binged The Pit, Paradise, Hijack.
wow.
Great writing, great shows, great acting, and also what I love about them all is like really interesting reminder how tension makes everything a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. With so much out there right now in terms of consuming on, all of the streaming apps, it's good to really figure out what has great writing, what has great storylines, because there's so much out there,
So
right?
much.
And and if it can, again, continue to benefit the way that we think about things when it ties back to business, that's you know even better. So,
Yeah.
well, Brian, can't thank you enough again for joining us. Your perspective on, again, partner automation and AI driven revenue orchestration is exactly the kind of insights our audience looks for. To everyone tuning in, thanks for being here. If you enjoy this conversation, follow us on LinkedIn, follow Channelscaler on LinkedIn, share this episode with a colleague, or leave a quick review. And we will see you next time on the Network Effect. Thanks, everyone.